used to get about 6 prop boys in a wagon. Every week we used to go up to this amazing dump in Southall or something, and they used to go to these bins where they had magnesium castings from aeroplanes, new, wrapped up, and I used to get the whole lot, put them in the truck, go back, and Propland was like Tesco's. We'd have all these bits, and then we'd go around and make robots out of them, and that's fabulous. And then in backs of television sets and bits of silver tape, but it was fun.
When I left school, I went to college, a secretarial college, and my first job was in an architect's office, which very much changed my whole interests, and most of my friends then were architects, and it opened my eyes to design in a way that I hadn't realised before. And then I got married and I had children, and my husband, who was a journalist, started doing work vaguely design orientated, and met a photographer, Michael Boyes, who became my absolute mentor. And I started working as a stylist for him, as a still stylist, which was incredibly good training because he was quite a taskmaster.
I was being a set decorator, one often had to get in a car and go and raid someone's house 500 miles away and pinch their dining room table. You know, that was through the mountains, you know, that was quite exciting times. You'd hear of things and you'd have to go and hunt for them. So it was really great because you had a different side of that. And it's not like going on holiday at a place. You found out how it ticked and all the people therein. And so it was very, very exciting. I used to love that. Really, really terrific.
The job of a set decorator involves obtaining and choosing, in consultation with the designer and the director, everything that goes into the sets in the way of furniture, objects, props, but not actually the design of the sets themselves. So I wouldn't choose how the windows the shape of windows, but I choose the curtains or the blinds that go on them.
You mentioned Empire of the Sun. That must have been an incredibly difficult film to do. It's nearly all shot on location, wasn't it? It was
except for the snakes.
Except for the snakes.
Of course, that was built at EMI. Massive set which went right up to the grid roof, and I'll never forget because we had thousands of these sort of grass snakes, and before we dressed the set, a lot of them were kept in the dressing room, and quite a few got out, and there was a big notice in the local paper, snakes in the high street. It was a bit embarrassing. And the snakes were horrific with the smell and everything in the whole stage, and they'd tunnel their way through the rigging and that and disappear, and I'll never forget that horrific smell.
Yeah.
And but snakes are snakes, you know.
Christmas Carol, Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh, that was gorgeous. That was such fun with them. Lovely. Hysterical little tiny things of making all the time and crawling under the floor and then popping up through the floor. No, it's great.
On Shadowlands, for instance, we were creating the house that C.S. Lewis, the author, and his brother lived in. The two of them lived together, bachelors, and I think it was 1957, the date of the film, and one imagined that nothing had changed very much there for years, so the furniture was basically sort of 30s oak, very ordinary stuff. Their beds were very simple wooden beds, no embellishment, just the basic requirements for two quite scholarly people, so lots of books and very quite somber colours. And then in their office, which was lined with books, people who live with books, they often leave markers in them, and I think that was probably the first time I thought I had to have markers in the books, and as if they had read had a reference, and they'd put a piece of paper in to remind them where where it was.
Well, first of all, I just go through the script and get the set sorted out in my mind, and then start breaking down with prop-wise and furniture and that, and then got to think about the character, obviously, if it goes through the whole movie. And then you pop into the art department and see some draftsman drawing, and I said, "Don't like the look of that, could you do something?" I go to production, I said, "Look, we've got a problem," because it saves a lot of hassle, if you can look at the drawings while they're going on. So I used to wind a few people up, and what am I saying, but in a very discreet way. I'm not, No, I think it's where your imagination comes in. If you're a set decorator, you've got to have a vision, I think. I mean, I don't know if I've got a vision, I hope so. But it is quite a challenge, because if you get it wrong, it stands out like a sore thumb and you're in deep trouble.
Right.
Yeah. Especially if someone comes along like Spielberg says and changes the entire set like that, and you've got 10 minutes to redress it and find everything new, that becomes a nightmare, because you've still got the same problem.
When you're working on the sets, first of all, I am given a drawing. The art department usually is the set decorating department, and by the time we start, there are usually several completed drawings of sets that are ready to be to think about the dressing, or we might go on a recce then to look at sets, locations that have been decided on that also need dressing. And I suppose if it's a good script, it captures your interest and really inspires you, whets your appetite to start on this journey of creating the right environment for the characters.
Now, when I was working on Titanic, jolly good movie, Mr. Cameron knew every rivet on that boat, and if you got the rivet in the wrong place, you'd got to kick up the and knew all about it. And of course, it was like dressing 12 Ritz hotels of 1910, whatever. In Mexico, the dining room went underwater so many times, it sort of, the carpet got like a sponge, And then you get the floor going in, because it was, all the ply and stuff would come up, and so you'd have to do quick. No, tricky.
When we started The English Patient, we all loved the script, and everybody wanted to work on it. I was particularly fond of Anthony Minghella, the director, and we all really, really loved the script. It really, sometimes you just read something that just is like an arrow going through to your heart, and that had that quality. And it was a very difficult pre-production period because the money was very rocky, and at one point we thought it was all going to fall through, and then suddenly it was all on, and we were all sent home for a holiday and we had to start shooting again. And so it wasn't a film where you thought all the way along, oh, this is definitely going to be absolutely wonderful and it's definitely going to be Oscar material. And it was quite a difficult film to shoot. It had lots of different parts, as I've said. And it was only when we were shown a brief cut of it in the middle of the editing that we suddenly thought, oh my goodness, this really is something rather special.
Of course, Raiders, you got the Oscar as well. So
yes.
How did that feel, getting the Oscar?
That was a big surprise. And I couldn't go, unfortunately, because I was doing Return of the Jedi in the middle of it, and of course I couldn't get away from. I should have done actually, but I was so naive in those days, I didn't know what it's all about. So I sort of went like that, which I had now, but I just couldn't get away. So it arrived on the door by FedEx or something. It was a bit of a come down.